In this video, we're actually going to be looking at some word problems and how they relate to graphs. We're also going to address what the domain and range is based off of a story. So here in situation A, we have a story about some deer growing as a population. Every story has a start, a middle, and an end. So we're going to try and find those pieces to this story. During the first few years, so we know we are talking about the start now, the number of deer on the island increased by a steady percentage. So we have an increase by percent, which means we're actually going to get a curve up. It's going to be increasing, curving up kind of like an exponential graph. Next, we're going to look for the middle. So the food becomes less plentiful as things go on. The growth rate starts to what? Slow down. So here I should grab my blue. So my growth rate actually slows down in the middle. Slow down, increasing. So this is just going to be less steep. Instead of going up like this, maybe it'll be going up like this. And then finally, at the very end here, we want to know at the end, now the number of births and deaths is about the same. About the same means that the population is the same, which means it is flat or level. Now, if I actually want to graph this out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph my domain, which is going to be time down here. Domain is time. And up here is going to be my range, and that's going to be deer population, or the number of deer. Now, to start off, an increase is going to be like this. It's going to start growing like this. To slow down, it's going to be going a little bit flatter, and then in the end, it's going to go completely flat. So we're actually going to draw all pieces of this. So I start off increasing like this, then I start slowing down, and then I go flat. So this would be the graph here of the population of the deer on this island. If you have any questions, don't feel free to ask. All right, just like with the first one, we are going to be looking for a start, middle, and end to this story. So in the northern hemisphere here, the amount of daylight increases slowly from January through February. So we know that we are going to have an increase, and it is going to be slow. Now the middle of the story here, it goes faster and faster, and then slowly until maximum in June. So our middle here is when we actually have a maximum. So we have a max. Actually, if we're trying to be really accurate, it goes slow and then fast to max. Fast to max. And then it decreases slowly through July until the end of the year. So then we have a decrease. So then we decrease. Crease. Slow. Now, if I was going to try and graph this out, what I would do is I would have my y and my x here. Now, obviously, x is going to be time, and y is going to be daylight, probably in hours. So if I start off with an increase slow, that's probably going to look something like this, or maybe increasing a little bit more like that. So I'm going to increase slow. Then in the middle here, I'm going to have a maximum, and then at the end I'm going to decrease. So if I tie all of these together, I have an increasing portion here, and then I have a leveling out part with a maximum, and then I have a decreasing portion here. All right, again, we're looking for a start, middle, and end to a story here. If you have a fixed amount of fencing, the width of your rectangular garden determines its area. So if the width is very short, so this is going to be the beginning here, the garden will not have much area. So we're going to start with low area. As the width increases, the area also increases. So I'm going to start with low and increase. Okay, so start start low and increase. Then in the middle here, we're actually going to increase more slowly until it reaches a maximum. So it'll be slow down to max. And then in the end, as the width continues to increase, the area becomes smaller more quickly until it actually reaches 0. So then I'm going to decrease to 0. All right, let's graph it out. Here we don't actually have time as our x value. It's going to be the width of the garden is what determines the area. If I start low, that means I'm actually going to probably start at 0, and I'm going to increase. Then it says I slow down, I have a maximum, I start to decrease all the way down to 0. So this would be a rough graph of this story. All right, let's look for our start in this story. Your cup of tea is very hot. So that is definitely a start. The difference between the tea and the temperature in the room decreases quickly. I think that we can say that we start off very hot and we decrease quickly. At first, as the tea starts to cool to room temperature, so yes, we are decreasing in the start here. So let's start off hot and decreasing quickly. Now, when the two temperatures are closer together, the cooling rate slows down. I think that would be in the middle. So the decrease slows. It actually takes a long time for the tea to finally reach room temperature. But if I reach room temperature at the very end, that means that I would be flat. I would be room temperature not changing at all. So if we sketch these out, decreasing quickly is going to be going down like this. So it would be going down. In the middle, I want to slow down, so I'm going down still, but not as steep. And at the end, I'm going nice and flat. There we go, nice and flat. So let's graph this out. Here's time, and here's temp. So let's start off with a quick decrease. Then maybe slow it down a little bit in the middle. And then towards the end, I can go completely flat. And that'll be what this graph looks like, the cooling down of a cup of tea.